What's happening, everyone, and welcome to the Sportscast with me, Andy Grant. We've got Gary Judge from Across the Park podcast. Mate, I feel like sport is back properly. It's Premier League weekend, obviously last weekend, and it was a belter, and loads more stories this week with the Women's World Cup, some more transfers and some off-the-field news. So I'm actually buzzing to get stuck in, mate. Where to start, I think really should give the Lionesses the praise that they deserve, and also give you a bit of a chuck up for your pick Sweden. I thought they were unlucky in the semi-finals against Spain, but I thought the Women's World Cup, mate, starts off. I mean, we commented on it ourselves. Starts off a bit slow, but I think it was you that said that, you know, once the group stage is over and the knockout stage begins, it's kind of really come into its own. And thankfully, England and your pick Sweden were right there until nearly the end anyway for Sweden.
Yeah, no, I think the standard, to be fair, and I hope that most people tuned in and watched the game yesterday, England-Australia, and I watched it with a few friends, and one of them was saying, like, you know, I'm surprised. You know, I'm surprised that I don't mean that to be like disrespectful. He was like, I'm surprised at the standard. And I said, the thing is, with the two teams we watched, and to be fair, the same with Spain and Sweden, there were two teams and groups of players who knew the systems. They knew each other. They knew the strengths and whatever. Knew had a clear way of playing. And I think that shone through in both of the games. So that the standard was really good, and I thought they were really entertaining, totally entertaining games, and four well-matched teams if you include Spain and Sweden. But yeah, as you say, the praise goes rightfully to the Lionesses to go to Australia, you know, in their own backyard, 80,000 fans. It was fairly hostile as well, as you know, certainly in terms of more hostile than our women and most women would be used to. You know, whether we like it or not, the women's game is still relatively in its infancy at this level, you know, with that amount of spectators. So, say to go to play the home nation in their backyard in front of 80,000 fans, and to play so well, and you know, despite conceding fairly late on for Australia to get back in the game and to get over the line the way they did was nothing short of, you know, it was superb. It was brilliant, and you know, proud of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we always, judge women's football on the international level, at least, on kind of how many people are tuning in and watching. And I think for me, I'm on holiday at the minute in Greece. I was driving to the airport and I downloaded the TalkSport app and was listening to it. And I think, you know, I love football, but I've never really been into the women's game that much. For me to be on holiday and have the, you know, TalkSport app download, listen to the commentary of the Women's World Cup semi-final, I think that just kind of shows that it is grabbing a lot of people, and it certainly did me. And I was a bit worried, like yourself, when they conceded so late. I thought, getting home advantage to Australia, etc. But the fact that I think they were the only level for about 7 minutes. I think they took the lead again, and then got another one late on, which was great. But what I will say as well, Sarina Wiegman, have you heard of her records, like the stats? It's something like she's played 37 games and only been beaten once, ironically, by Australia. But that was only in a friendly. She's never been in a competitive match in something like 37 games for England.
Yeah, the only manager, the only manager to take two different, and I think that I'm certain this spans to the men's side of football as well. The only manager to take a national team to two World Cup finals. Yeah, I mean, I said going into the World Cup, and I'm fairly certain I said it on here because we wouldn't have been speaking about it on Across the Park, that she's I'm not saying she's the difference, but she's world class. And when I say world class, I think, and this is what I said, I think she's one of the managers that could step into the men's game without a problem. And
well, that's you know, the World Cup finals on Sunday. Let's hope England go on and win. Now that means she's won the Euros, she's won the World Cup. Like you say, she's the only manager in both the men and the women's game to do that with two different countries. Let's say come October, November, a few Premier League managers get the chop. Would it be completely out of this world to suggest that she might be in a run for one of these jobs?
No, I don't think it's beyond question. I think what I would say, and this is the case in men's football, so I can be disrespectful here. International football is very different to the domestic game, isn't it? So I guess you would like to see her do that in the domestic game. You know, that there are a lot of women's managers who've done that well. Now, whether that, I'm not suggesting that the domestic game is stronger than the international game, but they're like two different jobs, aren't they? We've seen that in men's football. Managers can do very well.
I mean, I don't know what's trying to catch it out, but did she manage beforehand? Did she just manage solely in international?
Not at a significant club, or as you would call it, a strong club. Not that I'm again aware of. You can probably look it up on Wikipedia, and that again I wasn't necessarily aware of that. You know, ready for that question, but I think look, what I will say is she hasn't got. What I'm saying now is she hasn't got a reputation at domestic level. She hasn't won Champions League. She hasn't won more than I think an average domestic league. So I think the point is for me is she's a stronger candidate, and she's got as stronger credentials as any male manager. But I think that I think I'd like to see her do it, and I think just out of respect for the women's game, I'd like to see her go to like a Barcelona or a Wolfsburg or one of the stronger WSL teams and do it there as well. So yeah,
whether she gets a job in the men's game or not, certainly something like sports personality of the year or something like you know what I mean? Surely she's got to be in for some kind of top honour what the job she's done, and let's hope she can go one further in there.
She got it. She got it last year, didn't she? Manager of the year, and manager of the year, and the women got sports team of the year as well for winning the Euros, rightly so. And I think that'll be nailed on this time round, regardless of whether we actually win it or not.
Yeah, and I thought it was brilliant. Hopefully, so they play Spain on Sunday. And yeah, let's hope they can go one further. A bit of a horrible way to kind of link the two stories together, but we're just talking about women's game. I thought I would just bring up the quite, probably fascinating is the wrong word to use, but I am intrigued by how it's going to play out. The whole story with Mason Greenwood, that's kind of coming to kind of an end really. And to be honest, I'm a bit mixed on it really. So basically this week you had leaked reports coming from, I think, Man United saying that basically a decision's already been made and Mason Greenwood will be, brought back into the squad. Then Man United released a statement basically saying it's not a done deal yet. We're still having, we're thinking basically the final decision will come down to the CEO. Obviously we all know what's happened in what with him and his girlfriend. I think they're back together now, having a baby, I think. She dropped charges in the end, so there was technically nothing for him to stand trial for in that sense. The whole question is, is he allowed to continue his career or not? Now, on one hand, when you see this is me personally, when I see the pictures and I see the voice notes and I hear the voice notes, it makes you sick to your stomach and you think, wow, this guy's a scumbag. He should not, be allowed to earn this money and live the life he has and all that because of what he's done wrong. But then at the same time, I think, how long did you punish him for? Yeah, he's done something horrendous. He's not a good guy. I wouldn't want him to date my daughter or my sister. But how long do you punish someone for? Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there are people who have done much worse, in other jobs and that continue to work in whatever job they're in. I think where people maybe get a bit of a bugbear is the fact that he's on so much money and he will live a life of luxury. I think that's what people maybe don't like. But if you kind of take the money aspect away from it, he's a guy who's messed up in his job and just wants to be able to continue his job. So I'm a little bit like, yeah, punish him, but has he not been punished enough already? Do you bring it back in? You know what? I'm really sat on the fence with it, to be honest.
I'm the same as you. We both got daughters, and as you say, I couldn't imagine how I'd feel as a parent to see this playing out. And I know that her father has come out and defended her, hasn't he, quite early in the piece, to be fair. Which is it, and I don't know whether that's the kind of, I don't know what the motive is there. You could be cynical and say, it's the money and whatever, or you could maybe suggest that, look, he's known him for a long time. He maybe sees him as a son, that type of thing. What I'd say on it is, if he's going to be allowed the opportunity to continue his career and to not maybe be tarnished, if you use that word, with this forever, he's got to come out and speak himself. I think the public, if they're going to support him, fans, if they're going to allow him to continue, because that's what it'll come down to. If the fans or the football public decide that he shouldn't be allowed to continue, he'll get abuse everywhere he goes. and rightfully so to some extent. But if that's not going to happen, he needs to come out and face the music, and he needs to come and speak. For me, I'd need to see the white of his eyes, whether that's on TV or wherever he's interviewed. I'd really want to believe myself that, as you're maybe suggesting, that there's a rehabilitation process that's gone on. He accepts that what he done was wrong, and so on. I'd want to be confident that he has rehabilitated, and that he accepts what he's done was as you say, disgusting. And the one, he's got no intention of doing it again, and two, that he wants to maybe support victims in some way. You know what I mean? That's the type of thing that you expect to happen, isn't it? Now, whether if this was a case where someone has abused the trust from and took drugs or whatever, then they generally come out and say, look, I was sick. And that's what I said to you when we spoke about it last time. Maybe he was mentally unwell. We don't know. We don't know the full story, do we? And that's my feeling on it, to be fair. I'd like to hear from him. I'd like to know what's gone on since it happens, what he's done to try and right those wrongs. Not that you can ever right a wrong, but you know what I mean?
That's where I think what you say there, I think what you say is right. The public are going to kind of decide this, but I also think money will. And I think where the public come in, I've seen Melissa Reddy tweeted this week, some of the numbers behind domestic violence are horrendous. It's 1.7 million domestic abuse victims each year in the UK, and only 1.9% of them are rape cases, since 2022. It takes 7 attempts on average before a woman finally leaves an abusive partner. So I think when all these numbers and stats are coming out, you kind of want to throw the book at them. But then I think, like what you said, you flip on the other side and you think, well, and I think that's where United will kind of come in as a business, if you like, and think, well, if they do get rid of him, maybe he might have a case against them for unlawful dismissal. End of the day, he's not done any crime wrong, and yet maybe they get rid of him or something, or they banish him. Will Man United have some sort of consequence then? And you've also got, if Man United say, what, we're done with him, we don't want someone like him at the club. Not everyone, I'm telling you right now, not every football club will have the same moral compass as Man United if they get rid of him. Someone will snap him straight away, and he'll go on and be a great player, and Man United will think we've lost a great asset there. So I think it'll come down to public opinion and pressure, but also, where the money is.
Yeah, and I think I suggested this last time. The FA and the FA and the Premier League have got a role to play here as well. Then it shouldn't be as much as United and employers that are worldwide franchise. They need to consider their position on it. The FA and the Premier League need to be forceful with what their position is on it as well, because they can support it one way or the other. Whether it's supporting United, Mason Greenwood, and various charities, I'm sure, who campaign against domestic violence. Whether they come in that way from a PR point of view to say, look, we all need to come together here and decide what is the right thing to do. And if United proceed in this direction, we need to support them and support Mason Greenwood, making sure that there's some good that comes out of it. Do you know what I mean? And I know it's hard for that to happen, but it can be achieved if Mason Greenwood has rehabilitated.
Yeah. Should we move on to actual football then, mate? Like I say, the Prem started. I'm actually looking at our league tables that we kind of done, and most of the teams we said would be kind of in and around struggling. I think most of them lost at the weekend, apart from Aston Villa. But most of them were down there, really. Should we start? Because I know at some point, mate, you'll get your own back. We're having a pop at me on Liverpool's horrendous week. But should we start off with Everton, and then you can maybe get your own back?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't mind. And I've spoke, as you'll imagine, a few times on this. I actually think played really well. I was encouraged by the performance. I was encouraged by the style of play. I was encouraged by most of the individual performances. We just, as expected, I've not got anyone to put it in the onion bag. No,
I was going to say that to you. How many weeks have we kind of both agreed that you need a striker, and obviously we've been texting this week, and it was just so obvious. I'm not a Gary Neville or Jamie Carragher. You don't need to be to realise that things have got to be pretty much the same as last season, unless you get someone to put the ball in there.
It's horrendous, and they brought in a young striker, but as I said on previous podcasts, and I'll say it again, he's not ready. We need someone now to put the ball in the back of the net. Now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's come through another 70 minutes in a training game, yet before the Fulham game, Sean Dyche, despite Calvert-Lewin playing 45 minutes in the last friendly before the start of the season, Sean Dyche was insistent that he doesn't want to continue this trend. He wants to take his time with him, which is what he's done the last time that he come back. But I'm sick of talking about Calvert-Lewin's fitness. Like, it's clearly an issue, and it will be an issue, I think, for the rest of his career. We need to solve that problem. We need to bring in a striker. It's ridiculous. And it's not only, by the way, Andy, it's not only this season. This has been going on since we lost Romelu Lukaku, 4 years ago. We haven't bought in a centre forward since then. Calvert-Lewin was there at the time, but he wasn't considered to be a ready-made replacement for Lukaku. And it's the biggest blotch, and it's more than a blotch, but it's the biggest blotch on the football club's recruitment policy, that we haven't brought in a striker in 4 years.
Well, mate, I'm looking at the stats, and I'm sure you were there. I know you know more about it than me, but expected goals for Everton was 3.07, and you don't score. Fulham's was 1.56, and you come away with a 1-0 win. I think that says Everton really done it. 19 shots, Everton had 9 of them on target. Fulham had 9, only 2 on target. It's just like,
it's remarkable. And and listen, what you've got, I would be, to a certain extent, defending Neil Maupay if a lot of those chances fell to other players, but they generally didn't. He had the literally, I know off the top of my head, I could probably reel off 50 Sunday League players who would have bagged them chances. And that's not being disrespectful to Sunday League players. They were bread and butter strikers' opportunities at any level of the English pyramid. Someone would have scored them chances. And I'm trying to be as positive as I can with him, but I'm sick of it. Like, the fact he's getting in them positions, he's making good runs, blah, blah, blah. No, he's just not a goal. He's not a goal scorer as long as he's got a hold in his backside. And we've got to address that as soon as possible. But going back to your original question, I was encouraged, and I've got to keep thinking, if we can bring a forward in, a goal scorer, we'll be absolutely fine. I thought the energy and the dynamism of the team was far better than it was last season. I thought we looked very, relatively comfortable at the back, although that XG, as you've just reeled off there, 1.57 is still high for an opposing team. But I think that was generally because we were chasing the game and desperate to get a goal ourselves. But I thought Ashley Young was outstanding, by the way. I mean, I spoke to a Villa fan yesterday previewing our game this weekend, and he was like, "Look, I'm not surprised." He said, "I watched the game and Ashley Young was really good, and I think provided he stays fit, he'll be a really good player for you." Nathan Patterson was good on the other side. Decore and James Garner was very good.
I'm interested.
So I'm looking at a lot of positives to come out of it.
Yeah, you say the positives. I'm interested now. Genuinely, what was the feeling like at the end? Was the kind of the joke, the kind of the end? Was it, or was it
No, it was frustration. It was just like, it was a bit of a kind of muted applause type thing. Cause it was like, God, it's done all right there. And I think there was an acceptance generally that most players on the pitch had played their part on the day. We created the chances. We beat Fulham in most departments in terms of the battles across the pitch, but we hadn't done the most important thing, and that was scoring a goal to win the game.
Because my only thing is, you play Villa next week. Villa, I mean, I thought it would have been a close game, to be honest, the Newcastle game that they had, but they were absolutely, torn apart by Newcastle, 5-1. You go to Villa next week. I'm just thinking, as Evertonians, you come off the back of, like, say, a great performance, if you like, albeit you get beat 1-0. You go to Villa going to want to bounce back, and straight away you could be looking at, the first 2 games in, 0 points. I think that's why I asked at the end, what was the feeling like? Because me just looking, if I'm, a betting man, I'm thinking that's 3 points for Villa at the weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. And I was finding that hard on the podcast I recorded yesterday with UTV, a Villa podcast, to disagree with that notion, and they were he was confident going into this weekend, and rightfully so. I think they've got a decent record against us anyway, Villa Park. I think there's still a strong team. I think they'll still have a good season. I do think there's chinks in it all, particularly with the injury to Mings. I think they're not going to have that same aerial presence that they've got with him. But you're already, as you probably get into, you're already on the back foot, and you think you're looking backwards, you're looking over your shoulder. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's a huge game this early on. No, I think if anything, wouldn't say it's a. I also wouldn't say it's a win-win type thing, or it's a free game for us. But I don't think anyone, as you just suggested, is thinking we're going to win this weekend.
Yeah.
So I think if you get anything out the game, as long as you don't get snotted, I don't think it's going to be one that the manager and the players are going to be starting thinking, oh, that's it, we're done now because we've lost against Villa away.
No, of course not. Your turn to in fact, before because what starts off, I think, which you'll come on to Liverpool, what starts off as a bit of a funny joke, I know me and Musk give you a bit of shit over it, as the player who Everton signed.
Salah Allison.
You find signed about?
Salah Allison signed, yeah, and look, yeah. So just for context to the listeners and viewers, Muskie and Andy put in the story that Jack Harrison had done a U-turn and signed for Villa. Look, there's definitely some truth to that story. Villa were definitely come in last minute, expressed an interest, but then quickly found out that Jack Harrison's injured and withdrew their interest. Whether Jack Harrison intended to sign for Villa, we don't really know. I listen, I'm a footballer, and I know Everton, and I've got no loyalty to either club, and I know Everton are interested and Villa are interested, and there's a strong chance I can play in both teams starting 11. I'm probably going to lean towards Villa. I don't think that's a disrespectful for Everton at this period. Villa are in a better position than we are as a football club right now, on the pitch anyway. So anyway, in the end, he signed for Everton. I think even Everton were a little bit peased off with the situation, and that's showing in the announcements. It was a very
subdued
very subdued announcement compared to the previous man who come through the door. But look, once he gets himself fit, I think he's out for another month. It's a good sign and proves us without question. He's an established Premier League player. He's consistently contributed between 10 and 15 goals for the last 3 seasons for the Leeds team that have invariably been mid-table to near the bottom. So listen, I think it's a positive sign in the main.
I think it brought up as well a topic of social media and transfers nowadays. You've got Fabrizio Romano. He's become, I seen his post the other day, he's the most influential person on Twitter, apparently, if you believe that he gets paid, or some sort, or you were saying as well, some sort of payment via Twitter or Instagram, something like that. And it just begs the question, how much are football clubs on the pulse when it comes to transfer, or do you have, people at the clubs, following, texting them, hey mate, what do you think of this? And it is mad how it works now with social media, because 100% things will be getting leaked there, and that's how certain information is found out. I mean, it's not all, cloak and dagger. Some of it will be the old put his name in on Twitter, see what's coming up type thing, which just seems mad in this modern age with all this technology and the millions of pounds that are at stake. The fact that someone's tweeting stuff and it's actually having a real impact.
Well, I'm not going to be controversial here. 90% of the time, it's the agents that leak it, because it's in their interest to try and get the best deal for their client. So if they don't believe that the club that they're currently negotiating with is maybe giving them the best deal, and you think there's another club out there who might be able to enter the race, then they might message a Romano and go, do us a favour, just let the public know this is going on. You get the scoop of being the first person to announce that this is a deal in the offing. The other club either realises they've got to up the game and get it over the line because they don't want other clubs to get involved, or other clubs immediately get involved, and my client's got another option in terms of the financial side of it. So they've always played a huge part in that. It's always been in their interest generally as agents to try and leak it to allow, unless explicitly their client says, I only want to sign for this club, I'm only interested in these, and it maybe goes the other way. But you're right, it's frustrating for us. It's happened to us a few times. It happened with Dan Juma last year. It almost happens with Jack Harrison. It happens all the time with Everton. No, we're almost notorious for being slow at getting a deal done, and because of that, it gets out to other clubs. Tottenham have done it to us so many times down the years, so many times, where they've come out and took a player off us.
Well, after this week, I know how you feel, because what's seemingly been about 5 years where Liverpool have absolutely done a job on the transfer market, from someone getting someone like Luis Suarez in for relatively, not much money, to selling Coutinho for, what was it, 140 million, getting in Van Dijk and Allison, from having bits of transfer business done like that, so now seeing what's gone on this past week with Endo and also Lavia, it's just like, and you know what I think as well? these last few years, there's been rumblings of, when a big player leaves, or, Salah potentially might go, or this and that. I've always looked at the backroom staff, and you had Michael Edwards leave, didn't you, a couple of years ago. I think it might have been last season. I think there was another couple of people from the backroom leaving. And I started thinking, what's going on? Because why would you want to leave? So something that's, with Klopp there, you kind of feel like there's always something around the corner. You've got trust in him, you've got faith in him, he's got a track record now. I think, what's going on? Why are making these people in the back room wanting to leave? Do they know something that we don't about the owner's direction, or what the owners are willing to spend? If you're someone like Michael Edwards, who is doing the hard work and putting the groundwork in, finding players, but then you haven't got the people upstairs who are willing to pull the trigger and get these deals over the line, I can imagine it to be frustrating. And when the likes of Michael Edwards started moving on, and a few others, I did start wondering, is everyone really pulling in the same directions, the same vision up on the whiteboard, and everyone's looking at it? Or are people maybe, not all aligned? And I think this week it's become apparent. It's been an absolute mess. We just spoke about then the kind of agents leaking things on social media, various bits and bobs. And in general, it's just been a real embarrassment of how they went about it. And the most frustrating thing for me is they're willing to pay. I think the offer they made in the end was 111 million to Caicedo. We were after Jude Bellingham for 18 months, and we're willing to pay. It blows my mind to know that. Listen, we don't know what's actually gone on with Jude Bellingham. Maybe it was personal terms, or it might have already been agreed with Real Madrid. But this whole idea was, we're not prepared to spend 100 million on someone like Jude Bellingham. But lastminute.com were prepared to throw in a 111 million bid for Caicedo. And not only that, the Lavia thing added with it. And then the both of them saying to choose Chelsea. I mean, there's so much to unpick with it all. But I think it was just an embarrassing week for the club, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there about the bid that you made in the end for Caicedo, which was, which exceeded what was potentially going to be the bid required for Bellingham.
Yeah.
That suggests to me that the money is there, but it's down to the sporting director or director of football to decide where that money's spent and whether that investment's worth it. It's Jorg Schmacht or whatever his name is now.
He's only just come in, I think, this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, Julian Ward. It was Julian Ward, wasn't it, before that?
Michael Edwards and Julian Ward, and they both moved on, which to me, that's the thing. I'm thinking, there's something not right there.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Edwards was there for quite a while, wasn't he? But Julian Ward moved on after, was it less than a year or whatever? So, yeah, I mean, that's unusual. But for me, it's weird as well, because how many times does Klopp come out and almost go, I don't know, like, that's not really my business, and I tell the owners what I'd like, but I don't know if a deal's going to be done. I don't know if the money's available. We haven't got the money. He looks as surprised as anyone, didn't he, when that bid got made? And he was like, well, sometimes these things happen. That's just mad, isn't it? Like, I know Klopp is that type of person where he prefers to do his job as manager and allow that stuff to be handled, if you like, behind him, but you still should be on the same page, surely, because
it's just absolutely baffling, and I think it's gonna be difficult for Klopp to. Well, I'm actually really interested to know what he's gonna say when he gets asked the question. Why didn't he get the deal over the line? Because normally he's quite bullish, but I can't think of many times where two clubs have put a bid in for a player and a player's not chosen Liverpool. And that's not me thinking Liverpool are the best thing since sliced bread, but generally speaking, I think if a player's gonna pick a team and it's Liverpool's on the table with the history and where they are right now under Klopp, it's unusual that they've not picked him. So I think it's going to be really interesting to hear from Klopp and ask, why are these two players not wanting to come and be part of your project? What have Chelsea said or done or provided that have made two players, young players, choose Chelsea over Liverpool? And to hear what Klopp says, it's going to be really interesting, because that project that Chelsea have got, it seems, on one hand, you can say it's exciting, new owners coming in, splashing the cash. On the other hand, it seems very disjointed. You look at the season they had last year. I don't know what they're selling, those two players, to make them pick Chelsea over Liverpool. And that's not just because I'm a Liverpool fan. But you look at what Klopp's done under Liverpool, you look at Klopp and how he improves players. I know Pochettino's a great manager, but I'm absolutely baffled how this has played out. And like you say, I don't think Klopp 100% knows either.
Yeah, the only couple of things you could say that stick out is, one, the money. you say the financial offers that are on the table might have been significantly better than Chelsea, you know, on Chelsea's side. But what I would suggest, if that was the case again, I think that's poor on Liverpool's behalf, because you know yourself, and most fans know now, that the deals, personal terms, in terms of the agents and whatever, they're normally done even before the bid's accepted with the club. So why are you again?
Yeah.
Why are you I forgot the phrase.
Like haggling over, just like, yeah, you just, I don't get, you're haggling over it. You've done the hard bit and agreed with. Brighton have been quite astute in the negotiations, so you've done the hard bit. So frustrating. And it's left us in a position now where I think a couple of bits, it's always that thing, you know, when you sell a big player, and then it's kind of the situation West Ham are in at the moment. Everyone knows now they've got £100 million from Declan Rice. Liverpool haven't actually sold anyone, but everyone knows now we've got £100 million to throw at someone. So
you've got that money there to spend, yeah.
Yeah, people know that we're prepared to spend it. So that's going to put prices up for a lot of players. And there's not really that many players out there, I think, that Liverpool, you know, can go and get. Really, you've got the lads from Real Madrid who actually turned us down for Real Madrid, which is fair enough. Real Madrid, but it's Tushnawi, I think his name is, isn't it? Can I ever say his name properly?
Tremaine.
So he potentially, I think there was talk of him, but again, he's already turned us down. I can't see us going back into him. Which now then the talk is Endo from Stuttgart, who's he's actually captain for Stuttgart. He's from Japan. He's 30, and they're paying 20 million for him. And I think that what I've seen up to now is the talk is you pay 20 million for him, he could end up being a great player, and you think, wow, great, it's only 20 million, you know what I mean, and what a player he's turned out to be. Or in fact, he's crap, and you can go, actually, it's only 20 million. You know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, it's not much, which I think is a really poor way to look at things. But I mean, that's just what one.
It'll also beg the question, and I guess this is not necessarily down to you guys, but why not fight tooth and nail to keep your Fabinhos and your Hendersons then for one more season if you're signing a player from the Bundesliga? Listen, on paper, is a pretty bang average player from the Bundesliga. No one's really been that interested in him. I think he looks decent, all being said, but I certainly don't think he's gonna. I don't think personally he's gonna pull up trees, and he's not in the same league. Look, you've always had to step down a level to go, okay, we're not getting all the high profile ones. We're not getting the ones that everyone's after. Where else can we get someone? And you know, your director of football obviously knows the Bundesliga really well, and he's probably thought, listen, I can get that lad. He can do a job. But isn't that where you are at the moment as a club? Exactly. Players who can do a job.
Exactly. And you know, I know Fabinho's legs are gone, but he's actually older than Fabinho. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, what is going on? I mean, there's talk of Amrabat. I never say
Amrabat, yeah, Sofian Amrabat. Again, like it's been a while now since the World Cup where he come to the fore and he has a good World Cup. No one's really gone out of the way to throw the kitchen sink at signing him. I think people step back and thought, okay, he's had a good World Cup. Let's see how he gets on domestically, and he's not all that.
No, I mean, who has a good World Cup, and again, I've not been completely sold on him yet. So it's like, so anyway, just a really embarrassing week. And I think it showed more than ever when Liverpool played Chelsea at the weekend. It was a 1-1 draw. Both teams looked like they could go forwards, but defensively, having the game by the scruff of the neck, both looked like they really needed it. And I'm sure Chelsea wasn't that they solved that problem now.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, mate, I watched it, and it didn't, to me, look like two teams that were going to be competing for the top four. It didn't, and I'm not being like, I watched Newcastle the day before, or the previous night, and they were thoroughly impressive. But I didn't watch that game on Sunday and think, yeah, these are going to be two teams that are really going to be fighting up there this season. Unfortunately for you.
Yeah, I mean, slightly in a sense that maybe this is just me red glasses on, but I think if we do manage to score, I don't know how, given what we've just spoken about, but if we do manage to grab a player in who can do a job in that kind of Fabinho-esque role, or one of the lads that are already there somehow can morph into that player, then I think going forward we've got more than enough there to put on a show and go forward and do something. But it's just whether we're going to get someone in these next 2 weeks, which seems rather unlikely. Albeit saying that, we have got Bournemouth this weekend, and I can see that being a high-scoring game. I can see us putting a good few past him. So at least hopefully we'll get 3 points on the board this weekend. And else on Liverpool and Everton, mate, before we move on?
Don't think so. No, I think as you suggest, then we'll learn a little bit more about Everton this weekend, and I think for Liverpool it should be a good chance to raise the confidence. And look, if you don't beat Bournemouth at all, or certainly put on a show against them, as you're saying there, I think there'll be some serious question marks.
Before we move on to the other Premier League stuff, just while it's linked slightly to Liverpool, there was talk this week of Salah going to Saudi Arabia. There was talk of Allison going to Saudi Arabia. And then footage came out of Fabinho. We just mentioned him then in Saudi Arabia. And was given a watch. Not just a watch, it's, tens of £1,000s worth of Rolex. He was given by a fan. He actually then drops it, picks up, makes sure it's all right and walks off. He's gone from, footballers have gone from kind of getting abuse at training grounds and, getting stick to now getting Rolex watches when they walk from the stadium by fans. If the money that Saudi are offering isn't good enough, the fact that fans are giving you Rolex watches is when you're walking out. I mean, you don't need any more convincing to go over there, really, do you?
No, and I just a quick question from me, as I wouldn't say we're neutral because I obviously don't want Liverpool to be successful, but would you sooner lose out of those two if you had to lose, Salah or Allison?
Probably Salah. I'd rather he went. He's obviously, which sounds crazy, he's been our best player for the last 5 years, but I think going forward, I think one reason why Liverpool wasn't as successful as maybe they could have been was a goalkeeper. Alisson's the only, I suppose Reina was obviously decent, but I think Alisson's the only keeper really in my history of being a Liverpool fan when I felt so comfortable, in that position. So yeah, I'd rather keep Allison than Salah if I had to lose one of them. But hopefully they can fend off that Saudi money for a couple of more years as they're still massively important to Liverpool.
Sticking with Saudi though briefly, and you probably did as well, but I'd say, and I called it the talks apparently already underway to get a Saudi team into the Champions League.
From 2025 onwards, they are apparently reportedly in talks with UEFA about having a Saudi team in the Champions League from 2025, which, you called it a few weeks back. And I suppose it's not news now to anyone, is it really? I think that has always been, like they did with Liv, that was always the kind of goal. I just don't think people expected it to happen this quickly. Just a real surprise. But saying that, though, the players that they're bringing in now, if they were bringing in players like they were initially, that were maybe over the best days were past them, fair enough. Bringing in players now, young players, do a job. And that's, I guess, the thing where 2025 Champions League now does seem realistic because, Neymar's the latest one to go there. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's madness, isn't it? Absolute madness. And I think if that does happen, a Saudi team in the European Champions League, then you may as well just stop watching football because what is the point? Like, what is the point, though? It just becomes a game of Monopoly. Whoever's got the most money can just pick the rules. And it's like, it's just absolutely bizarre that this is even spoken about. Do you know what I mean? It's like geographically incorrect. Do you know what I mean? It's European.
I know.
You're not in Europe. I'm sorry. You might have a great product. You might have great players. Whatever. You're not in Europe. So,
but as you said, and as we both said, if you compare it to Live Golf, you know what they'll do then? They'll go, Sam, we'll just keep on this trajectory then. We'll keep buying all your best players. And your Champions League, you'll suddenly be a poor man's competition because it won't have the best players in anymore. We'll create our own one. We'll bring all the players over for it. They're just going to bend them over a barrel, aren't they? And it's sad. And as you say, it does go that way, one way or the other. And that what I mean by that is if it's UEFA bowing to them and saying, okay, yeah, go on, do what you want, but just do us a favour, leave us alone. Please don't, be too aggressive with your transfers. Or they go, no. And then Saudi, wrestle the power off them. It's not worth it anymore. It's not worth watching footy. I'd advocate going down and watching your local non-league clubs and starting to pump the money back into the grassroots game, which is, I think, to be honest, what a lot of people have already done.
100%, yeah. Yeah, you've got Marine, obviously, for us in Liverpool, and I think they'd be a great club for me personally to maybe get a bit more involved in, but it's just crazy. And again, it doesn't stop. You know, where we know how let's say honest and where the moral compass lies with UEFA and FIFA as well. So you can't even put your trust in them to make sure that, you know, this doesn't happen, because, you know, the documentaries on UEFA and FIFA and the backhanders and the brown envelopes, you know, where does it end? You've even now got Newcastle's owners putting on a couple of games at Newcastle's ground.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in business, you know more about business than me. I mean, how does that work? Do they just turn around and go, yeah, we've charged them, you know, 50 million quid for a friendly, and then they go, okay, we've got 50 million quid in our books now thanks to this friendly? I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's not as easy as to get around it, like, but it just begs the question, you know what I mean? Where does this end?
Only the regulators and in the, you know, in Newcastle case, that's the Premier League, can really step in and go, we want to see this deal from the get go and see what's being changed, what money's changing hands here, because, you know, you can say from a fraud point of view, or a money laundering point of view, which is what it is, that's not a realistic amount of money. Now, if you're a regulator, you should be saying, well, show me the competition here, show me why you've chosen Newcastle instead of Old Trafford, or, you know, Wembley, or why Newcastle? You know, and it's simple. Everyone knows the answer to that. In reality, it's because that's where where they want their money to go. You know, you've obviously got a choice when it comes to how you spend the money as a supplier, but it's, you don't have to be an expert in business to know what's going on there. It's literally just washing the money through Newcastle, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, one player who isn't getting his big money move, never mind to Saudi, I mean, anywhere, is Harry Maguire. We spoke about him a bit last week. I kind of said that he sums up, if you like, Man United's failings, if you like. Ten Hag, I think, has come out and been quite, I wouldn't even say harsh, but I think Ten Hag, like we both said, I think we both like him. He said he's a brilliant manager, and he's been really honest with him and said, look, he needs to fight for his place. If he doesn't want to fight, then he can go. They looked like there was a deal going to go for him for West Ham, but that's fell through for whatever reason. I'm not sure whether that was him not wanting to go, or
I think from what I understand, it was I think the contract, obviously, Harry Maguire had at United is a substantial one, both in his salary and incentives and all that. And I think he was basically saying to United, if you're selling me to West Ham, I'm not going to get, you know, any potential rewards for trophies, etc. Realistically, compared to what he was going to get at Man United, I want this as a settlement to allow me to go. And United were like, do one. And he was like, okay, sounds, well, I'll stay then. Which is disappointing. I think if you're looking at it, as we always do, from a legacy point of view and whatever, Harry Maguire's England's captain.
Yeah.
You know, he is. And that's, you know, that says a lot to me about how, you know, what Harry Maguire regards as more important, you know, financial incentives, or staying England captain and maintaining the position there, because you can't, you know, Gareth Southgate can't continue, whether no matter how much he likes Harry Maguire, if he's not playing at all, which he probably won't do in that United team, how can you possibly pick him for England, let alone make him captain?
This is interesting, is it? Because you've got now Harry Maguire out of favour. You've got Jordan Henderson playing in Saudi, and now Harry Kane in Germany. You know, you know, one not playing at all, and two of them have gone arguably to lesser leagues. One's definitely a lesser league, and in Saudi, but also Germany. They were three players who performed really well for England in the last couple of tournaments, who maybe aren't even anywhere near to the top end of kind of top class football at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see how it affects England as well. But yeah, I agree. The fact England's captain's happy to just sit on the bench and pick up a pay packet is really disappointing. Harry Kane, mate, obviously listens to the Lega podcast, took our advice perfectly well. Sounds like he's gone there because he wants to, you know, win trophies, and also very cheekily kind of said in his press conference that, you know, he's still young, the door's always open, who knows what's going to happen in the future, which suggests he kind of, you know, come back in a couple of years and still do a job. So, I mean, pretty much what we've been saying for weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, and he said in his press conference, didn't he? He pretty much said, "I've come here to win trophies. You know, I've got to a stage in my career where, you know, I'm ambitious. You know, I wanna be regularly competing and winning trophies, and that's what I'm here for." And you know, I don't blame him, and I can't say I'm surprised. I really can't, despite the fact, you know, it was getting to the point, wasn't it? It was dragging on. You're thinking, is this going to get done in time? But
Yeah,
I think the minute that the directors are flying over and stuff to England to have talks. It was always just going to be, look, what's the number? What do we need to get to? And they got there fairly quickly in the end, once those talks took place.
Albeit Harry Kane had been a Bayern Munich player for about 12 hours, and he got his chance to pick up his first bit of silverware, and he got
smashed, didn't he? It would be funny, like, if Bayern got picked for every trophy this year, like, that would be funny.
And Spurs win like the League Cup or something like that, be absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it was,
yeah. So that Spurs got their bit of business done. We've seen Arsenal. I've been unlucky, mate, with the injury of their new signing,
Timber. Yeah.
Been a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could do, but I think if, as an opposing fan, which you are, competing with Arsenal, you've got to be a little bit satisfied that they looked in a good position, to mount a challenge, if you like. They look out of the teams that are involved and chasing City. They look like the ones who got the business done early. They were happy with what they've got and settled. But that's a big blow to them, that, because I think they lost Saliba, didn't they, halfway through last season? And I wouldn't say that the wheels came off, but they definitely suffered. And then you can look at the stats and you can see that in terms of the number of clean sheets or the lack of clean sheets they had after he was in the team. The XG went a lot higher than it was when he was in the team. They brought Timber in, obviously, and they getting Saliba back fit. That would have made them a hell of a lot stronger than they were last season from a defensive point of view. That's now not the case. You've got, what's his name, Tommy Ashley or whatever, who's coming in, who's not for me good enough to be in a top four side. So it's definitely a blow, that.
The big thing is, as well, mate, talking of injuries, is it looks like Kevin De Bruyne is going to be out now for 4 months. And the most frustrating thing about hearing that injury is that Liverpool are not in a place to capitalise. You just mentioned then about Arsenal's injury woes. I think if there's going to be a season where Man City fall off a little bit, it's going to be a season where they haven't got Kevin De Bruyne for 4 months. And the big question is then, is there a team around them to step up and really push? At the push now, I think they're there for the taking, just because Kevin De Bruyne has been that fantastic for them. The problem is, you look at Arsenal there, they need to be just as good as they were last season, but they've already had to blow with injuries. You look at Liverpool, and what we've already spoken about, the defensive midfielder issues. I don't know, despite...
Man United didn't look that convincing, did they, the other night, and they don't look that they've gone that much further than they did last season.
And that's the thing. I don't think any team there will actually take advantage of the fact that City's not the best player.
Does it pave the way for the Newcastle? Newcastle last week, I know it's early and maybe premature to say that, but you can't knock, certainly on current form, and I'm including the end of last season, they look as likely as anyone. I think the form towards the end of the season was as good as anyone up there. Tonali, by the way, what a player. What a player.
He's had the strand in the Witherspoons, by the way.
Whenever works.
He's on 50 grand a week and he's ringing up the Wetherspoons to book a table after his Premier League goal. That was brilliant. But yeah, I agree. I mean, we both tipped up Villa and Newcastle to both have decent seasons. I didn't expect Newcastle to beat Villa 5-1. They've obviously, he's doing a great job with them, Eddie Howe. And yeah, maybe Newcastle are the ones that step up, because I do really think, I don't mean City in there for the taking, but listen to Bruyne. I mean, you could do a 10-hour podcast on how great he's been from Man City. Losing him for 4 is massive. You've lost Mahrez as well. Yeah, I think they could drop off a little bit this season. It's just whether anyone can take advantage of that.
That's exactly.
Man United, mate, as well. They had an interesting start. The officials that refed the Man United game have actually been dropped for this coming week. I didn't actually see the decision, but I know it was similar to the Everton goal that was disallowed, wasn't it?
It was worse than ours. It was worse than our one. What you could say about our one is the keeper has it in his hand, and then he's dropped it on the way down. It still wasn't, it wasn't a foul on our behalf, but which is what it was given as. It was given as a foul from Tarkowski, and I read it, and it was a foul on Tarkowski because he kind of ends up getting veered by the keeper. But we'd scored from it ultimately, and it got disallowed, and that was the frustrating thing. But theirs was worse. Like, the keeper's nowhere near the ball, just comes out and smashes their player. And I think that, we say it all the time, anywhere else on the pitch that's a foul. Yeah. But when it comes to goalies, it's like they've got their own rules. And as Muskie pointed out, the goalies have already got an advantage over every other player of, a good foot or more, couple of foot because they can use their arms and their hands.
Yeah.
Why are we giving them another advantage by just protecting them so much all the time? It's scandalous.
And it's a bit of a joke. Well, I mean, I don't know what else you could do, but it's just really frustrating when the officials come out and say, look, yeah, you know, we apologise and we're not allowed to ref the next game. But it's like, that doesn't give Wolves a point, does it? You know what I mean? It doesn't stop United getting 3 points. It doesn't actually have an impact on the main thing. I mean, I don't know what you can do, but it does leave a bitter taste in your mouth when you're thinking you've admitted you were wrong, but yet nothing really happens to it.
No, and it is tough, isn't it? Because I guess, the argument would be, look, they've made a mistake. Like, players make mistakes all the time, and all you can do with a player is say you drop for the next game, isn't it? Or you can fine them, but it's a bit harsh to fine a player for what would be deemed a mistake. So, no, it's look, you're always going to either go too far one way or the other, aren't you? As in, like, you need to defend referees too much or whatever, or you go too harsh on them. And I think one thing I would say, just to take it back to where we were at the start of the podcast, I think the refereeing in the Women's World Cup's outstanding, and I'm not saying here, like, let's go on the offensive here and swap all the male referees for female referees. But for me, and I guess it's different, isn't it? The dynamic is different. A female referee refereeing female games, and I might be wrong in saying that to a certain extent, but it feels different to me than maybe them refereeing. But
yeah,
I think just on a watching, enjoyment perspective and watching the game as it is, they've been miles better than what I've seen of male referees. So, and the balance in that sense is way out, isn't it? We've hardly got any female. The only female official I know by name is Sian Massey, and she's been around for a number of years. Apart from that, I couldn't name you another female official.
I really like as well. I don't know whether this will tie on, but have you seen where in the Women's World Cup when there's the announces, they come on the announcements? I think that'd be great as well. They could start doing that.
Back to your point on goalies. From United's perspective, it was 3 points gained, or certainly 2 points gained, because they should have had at least Wolves should have got a draw out of that. But that come at a time, I believe it was 0-0 at the time when that happened. So they should have lost that game because of that.
Anything else on football, mate, before we round off with just a bit of a world kind of spin on other sports?
I don't believe so. And I know we're probably not going to touch on the fantasy footy right now, but the Kevin De Bruyne one is obviously a blow to a lot of people. That's a brilliant in that team. But I know we'll be pointing out, I think, how the standings looking probably on next week's show.
Yeah. So for those as well who missed last week's show, for anyone who is really keen on the fantasy, it's too late to join our league now, but on Patreon we have got a fantasy football league scout that will kind of be giving his reports on the players to kind of get in and ditch. I didn't do too well on it this week, but again, we'll probably leave it a couple of weeks into a bit of a review on it. And it's another chance to support us on Patreon by signing up. On to tennis. You've got the US Open starts on Monday, and Alcaraz actually got beat in the Canadian Open. I think normally you just expect, Alcaraz to win most of these tournaments. He was actually beaten, but he's got the US Open now, which starts on Monday, to kind of bounce back, which I'll be looking forward to getting stuck right into that. Andy Murray as well was beaten in the Cincinnati Open. Djokovic actually won the Cincinnati as he returned to the US, which again is a big thing for him, having been banned from playing there because of his vaccination status. But
that hasn't finished yet, the Cincinnati one.
Oh no, sorry, it hasn't. No, sorry, but he won his last game on it. And again, I think that'll be with Alcaraz out of that now. Sorry, Alcaraz out the Canadian. Cincinnati's going on, and the US starts on Monday. So I think it's building up again for I think Novak and Alcaraz to go head to head in the US Open again, which it is. I mean, which it would.
It will be, and I think that's the most likely outcome. And assuming that the draw allows that to happen, I'm gonna have a cheeky little dabble on Danny Medvedev though. He's in unbelievable form going into this. More of a clay specialist than hardcore, but I think he's in great shape. And I watched the game last night against Musetti, and he was outstanding. So again, not a tip, but maybe a bit like the Sweden comments. I fancy Medvedev to go deep in the US.
Yeah, big fan of Medvedev. I've won a bit of money on him on Wimbledon as well. Big fan of him, and I wouldn't put it past him. We also made it for as well. It seems like so much sport goes on. You forget what happened last weekend, but obviously you had AJ fighting last weekend. And done what he was meant to do, knocked the poor lad out in pretty brutal fashion, it looked like in the end. I think, to be honest, just again, I had me moment last week about boxing. I was more interested in Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor pouring Irish stout down his neck on the bell,
it was the most bizarre exit from a ring I've seen. It was like WWE. He's going round high fiving everyone and like trying to give a nod to all kinds of people. And it was, you know what, mate? I've said it for a while now, and I'll say it again. He's not in the right place. Anthony Joshua, he's not like mentally right. Even like the little daft dad joke that he done at the end where he was saying, "Oh, my back's hurting," instead of "doctor." Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
what are you on about, mate? He's proper cringe, and he's not the same player. And boxing pundits will tell you this as well. You know more about the sport than I do. He's not the same person or fighter that he was, 5 years ago. And I guess I would reason for that.
It doesn't take a boxing expert to work out that if he performs anything like he did there, he would get battered by Deontay Wilder. Like
he's gonna get knocked out by Deontay. I've got no doubt about that. And you're right. Look, he's capable of performing very differently. He's capable of dominating the fight. But the Anthony Joshua we've seen for the last few years is going to get knocked out by Deontay Wilder. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah, he's definitely, I totally agree with you. He's definitely lost that kind of aura that he had, where he was just a goal. I suppose he still is the golden boy a little bit, but I mean, he definitely was that halo sat a lot more,
yeah,
a few years back.
Even like the respect for his opponents and his mannerisms, like that was really poor what he done at the end of that fight. Hellenius looked in a bad way. He was on the canvas. He fell really badly. He could have been really, and Joshua was doing like a little dance in the ring. And I don't know if you've seen it or you caught it, but a few people did, and I seen it live. Eddie Hearn had to go up to him and whisper in his ear to say, "Look, go and check he's okay." And this was 10 minutes after it.
Yeah.
So it took a word in the ear from his promoter to make him realise, "Oh, I best go and see if he's all right." But it was really poor from him in the way he responded to you see it all the time when a boxer generally knocks someone out. They don't celebrate until they know the boxer's okay.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're quick to realise, oh, that's inappropriate. That he's going around like getting the sponsors and, as you say, like necking a half a pint of Irish stout.
It's so random that, by the way. What's Conor McGregor like? That's another man who's not there. I think, listen, Joshua and McGregor, in a way, very similar stories when you think about it. Both come from fuck all, both reached the top of the game, both now very wealthy men. All probably happened in quite a short period. I don't know anyone that could happen to and then be okay, to be fair, do you know what I mean? Getting punched in the head for a living, the fame, the ego, the money, and both of them, like you say, have acted strange, let's say, in recent times. I mean, seeing McGregor pull up on a bus with five women, and he's what, 35? He's married, got kids. I mean, come on, mate.
He's desperate to stay relevant, isn't he, and be in the spotlight.
And listen, we're talking about him now, so he's doing his job. But I'm like, come on, man, you just go and live with your family and have a nice life and just, you know what I mean? What are you doing? But I thought that was really random. The one positive bit of boxing news I did see, we come from a podcast that Lilo was on, and he was talking about potentially if there's ever going to be a fight made with Crawford. He said that he potentially would be doing it, but it would be at 168. He said he wouldn't be coming down anything. It would be at Black Canelo's weight, which I don't know whether he would ever do that, but it at least was kind of, there's potential there for it one day to happen.
I mean, look, he's stepped up so effortlessly already. Crawford, I mean, that's a big step up to go to 168 and fight Canelo. But look, I wouldn't put it past him, and that'd be a great story for boxing. Again, it would continue that, that journey he's been on, and look, I don't think anyone could question him being pound for pound number one of all time if he steps up to 168 and beats Canelo.
Yeah,
in the next year or so.
Yeah. mate, I think that's it on the roundup, mate. I'm conscious of time as well. I'm currently in Greece. I've got a flight to catch. I was meant to be home tomorrow, sorry, yesterday, but had a blowout on in the middle of nowhere, which meant yeah, I had to come and get rescued, and then
First thing I thought when I seen that, by the way, is where's your spare tire? Do you know have a spare tire?
There wasn't one in the car, no.
What?
Well, and I was literally in the middle of nowhere. For anyone who follows me on Instagram, I've looked at me. I think it might be on my story. The tire completely just ripped off the wheel. Luckily, we were all okay, but yeah, it meant I missed my flight, so I had an extra night sitting in the hotel 2 minutes away from the airport. You might have heard the planes taking off in the background, so got a flight in the next hour. That's been my life. I know you're still away. You're home this weekend, aren't you? And it's your birthday as well.
It is, yeah. It is my birthday today, yeah.
So happy birthday, Gary, birthday present, and sign up on Patreon as well. It's a one. Gary's birthday present.
Get me a drink, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. No, but nice for everyone for listening. Again, if you do want to support us, head over to the Patreon page. I'll be putting my betting tips out this week if anyone is interested. They'll be getting posted on Friday or Saturday. If not, thanks again for listening. Back in the studio, I think next week or the week after. And have a boss weekend. Nice one.